The banishment the council chamber was cold. Not because of the air, but because of the eyes staring down from the high seats. 12 alien elders sat in a half-circle, their silver robes flowing like rivers of ice. At the center of the floor, a giant figure knelt. Lura. Her massive frame filled the space. Her head almost touched the crystal lamps hanging from the ceiling. Even on her knees, she was taller than most of the guards. But there was no pride in her posture, now only the heavy weight of shame they had thrown on her. The oldest elder spoke. His voice echoed against the high stone walls. "Laura of the ninth moon," he said, "you have been judged by the laws of our people. You cannot bear young. Your body is too large. You are unfit for our future." The words cut her like a blade. She clenched her fists, the metal floor bending slightly under her grip. "I have served in the guard since I was 16 cycles," she said, her deep voice steady. "I have fought for this world. I have bled for it." Another elder leaned forward, eyes cold as winter stone. "And yet you cannot give it life." The audience in the chamber whispered. Laura's sharp ears caught every word. Broken, cursed, a waste. She wanted to roar, to shake the pillars of this room until they fell. But she stayed silent. From the shadows at the far end of the hall, a human man stood among the alien crowd. He wore a dark pilot's jacket, his helmet tucked under his arm. Captain Reed had seen many strange things in the galaxy, but nothing like this. The giant woman's eyes. They weren't the eyes of someone defeated. They were the eyes of someone holding back a storm. The elder's voice grew harsher. "You will be sent to the exile moon. You will leave before the sun rises. Never return." The guards stepped forward, chains of thick black steel in their hands. They locked them around Laura's wrists. The chains groaned under her strength, but they held. She didn't fight. Not yet. As they pulled her toward the great doors, the human pilot's gaze followed her. He didn't know her. He didn't know why he cared, but something in his gut twisted when he saw her lowered head. Outside the chamber, the alien city stretched. For miles, towers like silver spears cutting into the clouds. But Laura didn't look at it. She didn't look back at the home she was losing. She stepped into the transport bay, the air thick with the smell of fuel. The exile ship waited its black hull covered in dents from years of carrying the unwanted away. The guards shoved her inside and locked the door. Reed moved through the crowd, slipping past guards with the skill of someone who'd spent his life avoiding trouble and sometimes causing it. He reached the side of the transport and placed his hand on the hull. Its reflection stared back at him in the dark metal. "Walk away, Reed," he told himself. "This isn't your fight." But he couldn't. Moments later, the engines roared to life. The ship lifted into the gray sky, leaving the city behind. Inside, Laura sat alone in a steel cell. Her hands rested on her knees, the chains cold against her skin. She thought of the battles she had fought, the friends she had buried, the pride she once carried like armor. All stripped away with a sentence. All because her body did not fit their idea of perfect. The hum of the engines filled the silence till a faint sound caught her ear. A metallic click. A small panel in the ceiling shifted. A human face appeared upside down, grinning. "Name's Reed," he whispered. "Mind if I hitch a ride?" Her eyes narrowed. "Why?" "Because," he said, lowering himself into the cell, "I think you just got cheated. And I hate cheats." Before she could answer, the ship jolted violently. A warning siren screamed through the corridors. Reed's grin faded. "That wasn't me." The walls shook again. From somewhere outside came a deep, hollow boom like a giant drum being struck. Laura's instincts flared. She knew that sound. Pirates. The sirens turned to a pulsing red light. Over the loudspeakers, the pilot's voice cracked with fear. "This is the transport vessel's silent chain. We are under attack. All guards to battle stations." Reed looked at Lura. She looked back. The chains around her wrists were thick, but the bolts holding them to the wall were not. She rose to her feet. The bolts screamed under her strength, then snapped. She stood over the human, her shadow swallowing him whole. "You freed yourself," he said. She picked up a broken chain like a whip. "You freed me," she corrected, her voice low and dangerous. "Now, let's see if you can keep up." The ship shook harder. Somewhere, metal tore like paper. The exile had just begun. The lonely world Laura woke to silence. No sirens, no voices, no sound of engines. Only the dry whisper of wind moving across rock. She opened her eyes and found herself lying on rough gray soil under a pale, cracked sky. She sat up slowly. Her chains were gone. The pirate attack, the flashes of plasma fire, the ship breaking apart in the blackness of space, all came back in sharp pieces. The last thing she remembered was Reed shouting something before the darkness swallowed her. She looked around. The land stretched in all directions, empty and endless. Jagged cliffs rose like the bones of some dead giant. There were no buildings, no ships, no life. Only the wind. She stood. Her heavy footsteps left deep marks in the dust. Each echo seemed to vanish too quickly, swallowed by the stillness. "This is the exile moon," she thought. "They left me here to die." From behind one of the cliffs, a faint metallic clink broke the silence. Her hand went to the broken chain she still carried. She moved toward the sound. Then, from the shadows, a human shape stepped out. It was red. His helmet was off, his dark hair messy, and a long scratch ran across his cheek. He had a small pack slung over his shoulder and a silver medical kit in his hand. "You're hard to find," he said, his voice tired but light. "Do you know how far you drifted before I could track your beacon?" Lura's eyes narrowed. "Why? Why follow me here? Your kind owes me nothing." Reed shrugged. "Maybe I don't like the idea of someone being thrown away because they don't fit in a box. Or maybe," he added, "I just like trouble." She studied him for a long moment. Most would look at her with fear or worse, pity. But Reed's gaze was steady, no flinching, no fake kindness. Still, she didn't lower her guard. "This place will kill you," she said. "There's no water, no food, no one comes here." Reed's grin was quick and reckless. "Then we'll have to leave before it does." Before she could answer, a low rumble rolled through the ground under their feet. Lura froze. That was no earthquake. You knew the sound, deep, uneven, and hungry. A dark shape moved on top of the nearest ridge. It was tall, bent forward, with long arms that touched the ground. Its eyes glowed faint yellow in the half-light. Then another shape appeared. And another. Reed's hand went to his sidearm. "Friends of yours?" "No," she said quietly. "They are what happens to those who survive too long here." The creatures moved down the cliff, slow and careful, their claws digging into the stone. Lura could smell them now, dry, sour, like flesh kept too long in the sun. Reed pulled the small plasma pistol from his belt. "Get behind me." Lura almost laughed. "You think you can protect me with that?" The first creature's head tilted, and it gave a low, rattling hiss. The others joined, the sound growing into a chorus of hunger. Lura gripped her broken chain tighter. "Stay close, human. I don't want to dig your grave before I get off this rock." The first creature lunged. Lura's chain cracked like thunder. The metal links smashed into the beast's skull, sending it spinning to the ground. Reed fired twice. the blasts burning deep marks into the dust as the other two creatures split apart to circle them. "You weren't kidding," Reed muttered. Ducking under a swinging claw, Laura stepped forward, her massive foot slamming into the ground. The impact sent dust exploding upward, blinding one of the creatures long enough for her to swing the chain again. The sound of breaking bone was sharp in the thin air. The last beast hesitated, its glowing eyes flicking between them. Laura met its gaze and took a single step toward it. That was enough, fled up the cliff, vanishing over the ridge. The silence returned. Reed lowered his pistol. "Not bad," he said, trying to catch his breath. "I might keep you around." She turned to him, breathing steady. "Keep me around, human. Without me, you'd already be in pieces." For the first time since she met him, Reed didn't argue. He just smiled, slow and genuine. "Fair point." But before either could speak again, a shadow moved on the horizon. Not a creature, this time. Bigger, metallic. With lights, Laura's heart tightened. It was a ship, and if it was the kind of ship, she thought, they were in far more danger than they had been a moment ago. Hunters in the dark, the second night on the exile moon was worse than the first. The cold came in waves, sinking into bone. The wind whispered through the canyons like it carried voices from the dead. Laura sat with her back to a jagged rock wall, the glow of the small fire flickering over her broad shoulders. Reed sat opposite her, checking his plasma pistol for the 100th time. "Put that thing down," she said. "It won't save you." Reed glanced up. "You're full of encouragement. You know that?" She didn't smile. "I'm full of truth." Above them, the pale moonlight dimmed as a cloud slid across the sky. The fire seemed smaller, weaker. In the new shadows, the cliffs looked sharper. Deeper then came the sound. It was faint at first, a scratch of claws on stone. Then another, then many. From all around, Reed froze. "That's not the wind." Laura's eyes narrowed. "They've found us." He remembered the things from yesterday, the twisted exiles, bodies too thin for their long limbs, glowing eyes burning with hunger. But this sounded like more of them. A lot more. The firelight suddenly caught two eyes at the far edge of the darkness. Then 4. Then 6. A circle of pale yellow points began to close in. Laura stood, the broken chain wrapped around her. Arm like a living thing. "Stay close," she told him. One of the hunters moved into the light, a tall, skeletal creature, its skin stretched over sharp bones. Its jaw wider than it should be. It gave a low hiss, and the others answered in unison. The sound rose until it became a scream of hunger that rattled the stone. Reed aimed and fired. The blast lit up the night for half a second, showing dozens of them on the ridges, crawling down like spiders. "Too many," Reed shouted. Laura didn't answer. She stepped forward, planting herself between him and the approaching swarm. The first hunter leaped, claws wide. She swung the chain upward with such force that the links cut the air like a blade. The creature hit the ground in 2 broken pieces. Another came from the side. Laura grabbed it by the throat and slammed it into the rock so hard the wall cracked. Reed fired again, the plasma burning holes into the dust as one of the creatures dodged with inhuman speed. They weren't just attacking, they were testing. Waiting for one of them to make a mistake. Reed cursed under his breath. "We can't stay here. They'll just keep coming." Laura's eyes scanned the darkness. "There's an old shelter 2 ridges over. I saw it when I hunted for water. If we run now, they'll follow, but the cliffs will slow them." Reed didn't need convincing. "Lead the way." The moment they moved, the hunters lunged. Laura swung, her chain smashing into 2 of them, sending bodies tumbling into the dust. Reed fired over her shoulder, each shot lighting their path in. Brief flashes. They reached the base of the ridge and began to climb. The creatures were fast, but the narrow path forced them into a single line. Laura kicked one back, sending it tumbling into the pack below. Their shrieks echoed like broken glass. At the top of the ridge stood the shelter half buried in rock. Its metal door twisted from age. Laura grabbed the edge and ripped it open with a grunt. They stumbled inside, slamming the door shut, just as claws raked across it. The pounding started immediately. The walls groaned under the force. Reed leaned against the wall, breathing hard. How long before they break through? Laura listened to the rhythm of the pounding, the way it shifted from claws to shoulders. Not long, he swallowed. And, if they do, she met his eyes, her voice low and steady. Then we fight until we can't. The pounding grew louder, faster. The thin metal creaked like it was about to snap, then dashed silence. They stood frozen, listening. The air felt heavier, thicker. Reed whispered, "Where did they?" Something heavy landed on the roof. The whole shelter shook. Dust rained down from above, and in the darkness, a single yellow eye appeared in the cracked ceiling, staring straight at them. The human secret, the yellow eye in the ceiling, didn't blink. It just stared, unblinking, cold, as if deciding which one to take first. Then, with a slow scrape, it moved away. The weight lifted from the roof. Silence again. Reed's grip on his pistol didn't ease. "Tell me that means they're gone." Laura shook her head. "It means they're waiting." Minutes passed. Neither spoke. The thin walls carried every sound, the soft wind outside, the slow thud of something heavy pacing just beyond the shelter. Finally, Reed broke the quiet. "We can't keep doing this. They're not going to give up. Even if we get out of here, this moon will kill us before they do." Laura leaned back against the wall, her massive frame casting long shadows in the dim light. "Then leave, human. Your people can still take you off this rock." Reed hesitated. "Yeah, about that." He rubbed the back of his neck, then looked at her with a seriousness she hadn't seen before. "I didn't end up here by accident." Her eyes narrowed. "Explain." "I followed you," he said, "on purpose. Even during the trial, I knew they were lying about you." "Lying?" Her voice was sharp. He nodded. "I've been to worlds where your people's laws don't match their science. I know of a research outpost human scientists who work on alien genetics. If anyone can prove you're not broken, it's them." Laura stared at him, trying to see the trick. Why risk yourself? You don't even know me." Reed's eyes flicked down for a moment, then met hers again. "Because I've been where you are. Cast out, left for dead. I know how it feels when the whole galaxy decides you're worthless." The words settled between them like heavy stones. Outside, something slammed into the wall hard enough to make the shelter shake. Dust drifted down from the ceiling. The creatures were back. Reed holstered his pistol and grabbed his pack. "If we move now, we can make it to the cliffs before they box us in. But there's one problem." She crossed her arms. "Only one. The research outpost." He took a breath. "It's on the other side of the veil rift." Eyes widened. "That rift is guarded by my people." "Exactly," Reed said. "If we get caught, you go back to chains. I go to a cell. Maybe worse." Another slam rattled the wall this time, followed by the screech of claws tearing metal. Reed's voice dropped. "So, what's it going to be? Stay here and die, or run with me and maybe live?" She didn't answer right away. Her gaze went to the door, where dents were beginning to form under the force of the pounding. She thought of the council chamber, the cold eyes. The word useless burned into her name. And she thought of the possibilities, small, fragile, but real, that Reed might be right. Her decision came like a snap of bone. "We run." Reed grinned. Good. Then get ready, because when that door goes, we'll have seconds. The metal groaned under another blow. A crack split the lower hinge. Claws punched through, scraping the air inside. Reed raised his pistol. Laura wrapped the chain around her arm, the links humming like they could feel the fight coming. And then, the final shriek, the door gave way. The escape the door tore free with a scream of metal. Cold night air rushed in, carrying the stench of the hunters. Yellow eyes filled the opening, dozens of them. The first creature lunged, jaws wide. Laura met it head-on. Her chain whipped forward, with a sound like a thunderclap wrapping around the creature's neck. One sharp pull, and it collapsed, choking on dust. Reed fired past her shoulder, the blast lighting the shelter in a violent blue flash. Go. She roared. They ran. The ground outside was a mess of shadows and jagged stone. Every step sent dust swirling. Every breath burned their lungs. Behind them came the pounding of claws, relentless, getting closer. Reed's voice cut through. The chaos, keep toward the cliff. The drop will slow them. A hunter leaped from the ridge above, aiming for Reed's back. Laura shoved him aside and took the hit herself. The impact slammed her into the ground. The creature's claws raked against her armor, sparks flying. She grabbed its arm, twisted, and heard the sickening snap of bone. With a roar, she threw it into two others charging from the side. Reed grabbed her hand and pulled her up. You're insane. You're slow, she shot back. They reached the cliff's edge, a sheer drop into a narrow canyon. Far below, faint blue lights shimmered from glowing stones. The hunters gathered on the ridge behind them, their hisses growing into a single, chilling scream. Reed didn't hesitate. He jumped. Laura followed, her massive form hitting the canyon floor with a bone-jarring thud that sent small rocks skittering. Reed landed beside her, rolling to his feet. Move. The canyon was tighter, forcing the hunters to come at them in single file. Laura swung her chain like a barrier, knocking them back one by one. Reed fired down the line, his shots lighting. The walls in bursts dot up ahead. A faint metallic shape emerged from the shadows, the battered frame of Reed's ship. Wedged into the canyon wall like it had crashed there years ago. Tell me that thing can still fly, Laura said. Reed grinned. Through his panting. She'll fly, long enough to get us killed somewhere else. They reached the ship. Reed slapped a control panel on the side, and the hatch hissed open. The two of them dove inside as the nearest hunter lunged. The hatch slammed shut on its arm, severing it. The creature's scream faded as the ship's engines roared to life. The hunters scrambled along the canyon walls, leaping onto the hull. Claws scraped metal. One smashed a viewport with its head, shattering glass across the cockpit. Hold them off. Reed shouted. Laura grabbed the broken chain in both hands and smashed it into the viewport frame, knocking the creature back in two. The dust? Another tried to crawl onto the wing, but the engine's heat sent it tumbling. Reed yanked the controls, and the ship blasted upward, throwing the last of the hunters off. They shot out of the canyon into the star-filled sky, but their victory was short. From above, a massive shadow blotted out the stars, a cruiser, silver and black, with the insignia of Laura's people burning bright on its hull. Reed's face tightened. They found us. A voice boomed through the comms, cold and merciless. Lure of the ninth moon, and the human. Power down your vessel. Return to Custodier, be destroyed. Laura stared at the looming warship. Her people's warship. Reed, she said, her voice low. Don't stop. He didn't. The final barrier, the warship, filled the sky, its shadow swallowing Reed's small vessel whole. The hum of its cannons was deep enough to vibrate through bone. Reed kept his hands on the controls, jaw tight. If they fire, we won't. even have time to know we're dead. Over the comm, the voice came again, almost bored. This is your only warning. Laura leaned forward, eyes fixed on the glowing insignia painted across the cruiser's hull. Memories slammed into her standing in those halls, wearing their armor, believing she belonged. Now those same halls had ordered her death. They'll kill us either way, she said. So we make the first move. Reed gave her a sideways. Look, you thinking what I'm thinking? Probably not, she replied. Mine involves ramming them. Before Reed could answer, the cruiser's side lit up, launch bays opening like the mouth of some colossal predator. Dozens of smaller fighters poured out, forming a net across the stars. Rammings off the table, Reed muttered. His fingers danced across the console, and the ship's engines gave a high-pitched whine. But I've got something better. The small vessel suddenly dropped like a stone. The fighters above scrambled to follow. But Reed angled toward the thick debris field drifting below a graveyard of old ships, shattered satellites, and broken war machines. They can't follow us in here, he said. Too much junk. But it's going to be tight. Laura braced herself as the ship weaved through rusted hulls and spinning chunks of metal the size of buildings. Every near miss left scorch marks on the shields. Every turn felt too close. A bright light flared in the distance. Laura turned to Ward. Etan saw the cruiser's fighters entering the debris field anyway, using their smaller size to slip through the gaps. They're coming, she warned. I know, Reed said. But that's what the outpost will see. She frowned. Outpost, the human research station. We're close. They pick up this chase, maybe they'll open the gates. Maybe. Hey, Reed said, grinning despite the sweat on his forehead. Life's more exciting with a little uncertainty. A sudden impact threw them sideways. Laura caught herself on the wall, looking out to see one of the fighters scraping along their wing, trying to force them into a collision. She grabbed the emergency release lever and yanked. A piece of loose hull plating detached and spun into the fighter's cockpit, shattering it. The enemy ship spun away, vanishing into the wreckage. Not bad. Reed said. I'm full of surprises, she answered. Ahead, through the tangled graveyard of metal, a glow appeared, a massive circular structure built into an asteroid. The human outpost. Its gates shimmered with a blue energy field, and defense turrets rotated toward the incoming ships. Reed opened the comm. This is Captain Reed, Vessel Freefall. Hi, a priority case biological. We're under pursuit from hostile forces requesting immediate. The comm crackled. A human voice replied, sharp and official. Negative. We are under lockdown. No entry. Laura stepped forward. If you don't open those gates, you'll be responsible for 2 deaths. One of them might save your research for the next century. Silence. Then lockdown stands. Outside, the fighters tightened their net, herding them toward the tame energy field without letting them pass through. The warship's shadow loomed closer, its main gun glowing brighter. Reed shut off the comm and looked at her. There's only one way in now. She knew what he meant. You're going to crash the gate. He nodded. Hope their shields hold for just long enough. The cruiser's gun fired. The blast lit up the debris field like a second sun, and Reed drove straight into the light. The blast hit them like a giant's fist. Reed's ship spun sideways, alarms screaming in every language known to the galaxy. Sparks rained from the ceiling as the energy gate's blue field wrapped around the hull like liquid lightning. The shields groaned, bending under the strain. Hold on, Reed shouted. Laura gripped the seat so hard the metal frame warped under her fingers. The glare of the warship's cannon faded behind them, replaced by the sudden silence of passing. Through the gate, then dash impact. The freefall slammed onto the outpost's landing deck. skidding across the metal until it crashed into the far barrier with a final shuddering boom. The cockpit filled with smoke. Laura coughed once, then shoved the hatch open. Cool, recycled air hit her face as human soldiers in white armor surrounded them, rifles raised. One stepped forward. "Captain Reed, you violated interstellar protocol. He's dying," Laura cut in, pointing to Reed slumped over. "The controls, and I'm not leaving without what you promised." The soldiers hesitated, glancing at each other. Then a woman in a black medical coat pushed through the line. "Bring them in, now." The Trutha lab was bright and sterile. A world away from the exile moons, dust, and shadows. Machines hummed softly around them. Reed lay on a medical bed, his face pale but breathing steady. Laura sat on the exam table, the size of it laughable beneath her. The scientist moved a scanner slowly over her massive frame, eyes darting to the readings. "This, the woman," whispered. "This changes everything." Laura's gaze locked on hers. "Say it. You can reproduce," the scientist said. "Not with your species alone, but with human-assisted genetic alignment. It's not only possible, it's safe." The words sank into Laura like sunlight after a lifetime of cold. For a moment, she didn't trust them, but the woman's face was open. "Sure." Reed stirred, opening one eye. "Told you." They were wrong. Months later, the outpost gardens were quiet under the artificial sun. Laura sat on a bench, her massive hands cradling something impossibly small. The baby's skin was soft, its tiny fingers curling around hers, half human, half her. Reed stood beside her, his arm in a sling but smiling, like nothing else mattered. "You look different," he said. "I feel different," she replied softly. "For the first time, I am not what they said I was." The doors at the far end of the garden opened. A group of alien diplomats entered, their robes heavy with the insignia of her people. Their leader stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Laura, of the 9th moon, you have broken our laws. You will surrender the child." Laura rose slowly, her height casting a long shadow over them. The baby slept peacefully against her chest. "You cast me out," she said, her voice steady but full of steel. "You told me I was nothing. Now I stand here with proof you were wrong." The leader's eyes narrowed. "We will take it by force." Laura's grip tightened around her child. Reed stepped up beside her, his hand resting on his sidearm. She looked the leader in the eye. "Come and try." The diplomats froze, measuring her, the human, and the unseen defenses of the outpost around them. Finally, they turned without a word and left. Laura exhaled slowly. Reed smiled faintly. "Guess some fights end before they start." She looked down at her child, then out at the artificial sky. "No," she said quietly. "Some fights are just beginning."